Hello, my friends. First of all, by the time you watch this video, it's possible that the video quality may be a little low. YouTube has started to automatically decrease video quality in an effort to ease the strain on bandwidth with so many people utilizing the internet for streaming at the moment. I wanted to share a few brief thoughts with you today. As recorded in John 15, Jesus once said, "Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." I have a confession to make to you. I don't feel adequate for the moment. There's so much to weigh, so many decisions to make. I'm out of my comfort zone trying to do things via video. I'm trying to be creative in finding ways for us to remain connected to one another and to meet as many needs as possible, but creativity isn't one of my great strengths. I'm concerned about how we ought to move forward, and I don't know what the right answer is. But none of that is really the confession. There's no shame in any of those things. None of that is unreasonable. These are just the realities that most of us are facing right now. The confession is that I have allowed all these realities to cause me to become weighed down, to stress over decisions and plans. I've read lots of things on the virus, the possibilities, the ways we ought to respond, the things that we as a society and we as a church ought to do and be preparing for. And I've wrestled with these things to the point of being stuck. I have not despaired, but I have allowed a lingering sense of unease to settle over me, in me. If you watch the sermon from this past Sunday, then perhaps you understand why this is problematic. I spoke from Hebrews chapter 4 about the rest that we can know through Jesus Christ. Perhaps this is a good time to remind us all, myself included, that studying a passage and preaching and teaching a passage doesn't magically mean that you have mastered it. Most Sundays when I deliver a message, it's not as some kind of expert who has it all figured out or someone who no longer struggles with that particular issue. On the contrary, I often just say what I know I need to hear. I'm just as human as you are. We're all just as human as those around us. And spoiler alert for this Sunday, we're going to be looking at the end of Hebrews chapter 6 and considering how that fact, the fact that we all share in the limitations of humanity, doesn't apply to the founder of our hope and how that fact affects our hope. Coming out of preparations for last week's message and shifting into the preparations for this week's message has been a needful thing for me. It's been a reminder to me of the need to frame my limitations, more accurately, all that I am, properly, and to surround them with who God is. I've needed to remember, and I'm reminding myself even now with these words, of my complete and constant dependence upon God for everything. Please don't misunderstand. I don't struggle with my dependence upon God for my righteousness. I've been blessed with the gift of a strong faith in the existence, worthiness, and sovereignty of God. I've never been one to really wrestle with why God does what he does, I've mostly been able to keep the perspective that He is God and I am not. He is in heaven and I am on earth. He's omniscient and I know so very little. And that the sufferings of this life are not His fault. They aren't evidence of a lack of His compassion and goodness or His power, but rather the consequences of a fallen, sinful world. None of that is because I'm better than anyone who does struggle with those things, but by the grace of God working in my heart and mind. Paul wrote to the Corinthians of the gift of faith which comes through the Spirit. I credit what I'm speaking of here now to that concept. All that said, I have at times, such as the current set of circumstances and what I described a few moments ago, struggled to remember that apart from Him, I can do nothing. I try to figure things out, work out the best plan, come up with the answers, which isn't necessarily bad, but it is if it betrays a lack of complete dependence upon God. If I rely on my own strength, my own wisdom, my own creativity, my own anything, I will accomplish very little and nothing of real eternal significance. If I rely on your strength, your wisdom, or your creativity alone, the same is true. We are the branches. We must abide in the vine if we are to bear fruit. Abide implies that we must remain. And it's more than just an action. It's an ongoing state of being. At all times, all that we are, all that we think, all that we do, all that we plan must be shaped by who God is, what He has declared, all that He has done, and all that He has promised. His presence is essential to everything. I am not adequate for the moment. You are not adequate for the moment. But God is. And because of that, it's not only okay to admit that we are not, it's essential that we do. And then that we live with total dependence upon our God in everything. Yes, we should do the best we can with what we have. We should be good stewards and do our part. We should stretch ourselves beyond what is comfortable. But we should remember in every moment that even our very best means nothing without the blessing of God. And the blessing of God means everything to all of our efforts. It transforms them into more than we could ever make them. It's like the old song, little is much when God is in it. As Jesus went on to say in John 15, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. Joy is possible in any circumstance when we abide in God. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to figure everything out perfectly. Instead, we can pray honestly, remember what is true, and act in good faith while striving to obey His commands. And that is enough. His presence is enough for me and for you. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. May the God of all comfort bless you and keep you with His presence.